What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Today is Best Served Podcast 206, and we are talking If I Was Not a Chef with Jamie Bissonnette of Toro, a Little Donkey. Jamie, thanks for being on.
Hey, dude, thanks for having me.
We're going to have a great conversation. This channel, Best Served Fresh, we really focus on fresh ideas, new approaches, best practices. Jamie is a wealth of knowledge. He's done a lot of things right. He struggled with a lot of things, is very open about that, so I appreciate the conversation that we're going to have. Jamie, chef owner of JK Food Group. You got Toro, Copa, Little Donkey, based in Massachusetts. Tell people who don't know, kind of what can they expect from your restaurant group and your concepts?
So we're a chef-driven restaurant group. I hear a lot of people say that, but it's my business partner, Ken Oranger, and I, we both run the restaurants, and we have great family of people working with us, and you're going to expect to see high energy, the kind of restaurant that feels like a party with very thoughtful food.
Oh, that is a perfect elevator pitch for exactly what you do. I love that. All right. Usually we go into backstory. I want to get right into this because I think it's very important. A lot of people don't know about this. We're going to talk a little bit about the landscape of restaurants right now. We're going to talk about the IRC. We're going to talk about the MRU. We're going to talk about all kinds of acronyms that we're supposed to know what they mean. But I want to touch on this because restaurants need help right now, massively. And you and so many other chefs and operators across the country have been working really hard to get kind of save restaurants across the board. And so let's dig into that a little bit. Tell people IRC, what specifically is that? What's the work that's happening there?
So the independent restaurants is what we are, and we kind of started right off the bat. It was like a quick email and a text message from like one person who like organizes chefs to another person, Andrew Chasen. And Chasen was just like, I need to get these people together. And then it was a PR firm. And then next thing you know, we're doing, 3 or 4 calls a week or Zooms a week to talk about what we can do to save our industry and save it in a lot of different ways. We worked on things like extending PPP. We had some of our delegates in the White House meeting with Donald Trump, whatever, that guy. Yeah. You heard of him. And we've affected a lot of change. We've been working with Senator Blumenauer out of Oregon to the Save Restaurants Act to see if we can, get some sort of government help to keep our industry alive. And then the MRU is the Mass Restaurants United. And that was started by Jody Adams and Tony Moss, John from Saloniki. And then they brought Ken and I into the fold with Michael Leviton. And there we're trying to do that same thing locally. Matt, we stand to kind of like support the restaurant in the community of independent restaurants in Massachusetts through COVID. And then, hopefully we'll be around afterwards to affect some more change.
Good. And we'll drop links for everybody. Make sure there's really simple ways through the IRC portal, especially, that you can go directly to your representatives, send them an email. I did it for kind of Colorado as well. And so it's really, really fast and simple. So make sure that you go do that. If you give a shit about restaurants, which anybody who watches this show does, make sure that you go and contact your representatives because it really, really matters. Every single voice, and there's 15 million people that work in this industry. That is a lot of voices, and it really matters. I want to go back to the restaurant acts. And this is an act now that is looking to do a $120 billion recovery fund and then put more funding into the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. So kind of give us an idea of where that's at. What are the conversations that are happening behind the scenes? What's the temperature feel like of this getting passed? Where is it at?
I mean, it doesn't look like the temperature in the room is advantageous for this right now. It looks like we're going to have to wait, and hopefully after November 4th, we'll see some more changes. But the good thing is, if it does pass, it's relatively quick to implement, and it's going to be extremely helpful for our industry. I mean, restaurants, like you said, 15 million people. We're the number 2 employer and the private sector in the United States. Number 2. So there's people who work for the government, and we're number 2. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of freaking people. And to see how our unemployment is, and I'm thankful that at least the weather in some of the southern states will be helpful for restaurants, but we don't want to have like a dinosaur extinction because of the cold as winter comes in places like New England and Minneapolis. places like that. I mean, it's just terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a freak snow here in Denver. There's literally snow on the ground outside of this window right here. So, yeah, this is major, people. Like, we don't want to gloss over this. You see people throwing up the hashtag save restaurants, and it seems like this rah-rah thing. This is serious stuff. This is millions of people's livelihoods on the line, and it's such a struggle because unlike other industries that have a few really big companies that you can bail out 20 people in the airline or 20 people in the banking industry or 20 people in the auto industry, you have 660,000 restaurants, and most of those are independent operators. It's a lot easier to brush away the small business owner than it is these big corporations. So we absolutely need your help. So I wanted to spend some time on this because I think it's important. Pay attention to the restaurant acts, see what's happening, and go and vote. If you don't think that what's happening currently is good enough, you have that opportunity. So appreciate that. I'm glad we got to get on the bully pulpit for just a second. So
yeah, and remember, if you walk by a restaurant that's busy with a patio, that doesn't mean we're saved. That just means we're saved today, just for that one service period, just for that time it's busy. So help support if you can.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So, and I appreciate that it's going to happen quickly because PPP, when it first came out, was a cluster. Nobody knew what was going on. It was evolving every single day. You were taking a loan that was supposedly a bailout, but not really. But at least now the pipeline for money getting in is there because the banks had to figure that piece out. So that's there. So hopefully when we get this passed, the money can come quickly because restaurants will not survive the winter without additional support. Full stop. So I need people to like really hover on that. I know we're beating this, but it's important. So, all right. Now I want to go back. I want to take people back a little bit, get your story a little bit, and set the tone for that, and then kind of understand again the reflection that we're in this moment is thinking about, you know, if I was not a chef, and you joke about I would be a spy or in a band like Black Sabbath, which is fucking rad, obviously, but also it's a moment of like real reflection. And so I want to like set the tone for kind of who you are in the industry, and I think that'll help people understand why moments of reflection are something that kind of are in you. So take us all the way back. When did you first catch the hospitality bug? When did you get into this crazy industry?
Man. So I've always loved food. I grew up and all my memories are of like, you know, liverwurst on pickles when I was a kid. And I can't remember what the name of my soccer team was in like middle school, but I can remember that the Flaherty's brought the best oranges for halftime. So clearly there was like some sort of culinary hook in me from birth. And there I just started living food, and then I realized I was different and was weirder than everybody else, and I fell into, you know, hardcore and punk rock, and I was straight edge, and you know that really encompassed my entire life, and it really started to form me. I started to live healthier life, and I was, you know, at 14 I was a vegetarian, straight edge, and my mom wouldn't cook vegetarian food, and in the early 90s getting something vegetarian or vegan, a lot of us were vegan, it was out of the question, man. It was like, yeah, you go to Denny's, you can get hash browns with shared oil, and I think they had like a fried okra dish that didn't have dairy. That was like it. You know, spent a lot of times on tour, you know, driving around with bands, eating Twizzlers and Fritos, and you know, some of our friends got into Hare Krishna through bands like Shelter and 108, Inside Out. And, you know, hey, if you go and you go and pray and sit through some music and chanting, you know, on Wednesday, afterwards there's a buffet and you get all this like dosa and dal and chana dals and all these things. Right. I fell in love with the food, man. I just like couldn't, the spices and like it was great. So I started, you know, buying food while we were, you know, having breaks, and started cooking before band practices. And you know, I was a lousy bassist. I'm better now than I ever was. And I've only been playing again for like 3 years. I was playing every day. I just sucked. And eventually, like, the people I played with were like, you know, you can hang around, but you can't play in the band anymore. Yeah. So it's like,
I'm here for the lifestyle, guys.
Yeah,
I rock out hard, even though I can't hold rhythm to save my life. It's perfect.
Dude, I was great at clearing the pit, jumping off the stage with the bass, but keeping up with the notes, probably not my strength at that time. It sucked.
And when did you actually get into it? When did somebody pay you to cook?
Well, that
food?
was it, man. Like, so I was working at a grocery store the whole time, you know, as like a clerk, bagger, doing whatever, but I was always drawn to the deli or drawn to the meat room. You know, it was like a little IGA in Canton, Connecticut. And I was like, I wanted to go learn how to fabricate. I was a vegetarian, because it made my body feel better. But I was like, yeah, I'll still cut meat for other people if I could. Yeah. And coincidentally, I was in a lot of trouble at school, and I had gone to a couple of different high schools in the last 2 years of schooling, and I got kicked out. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go get a GED, and that's it. I'm just going to start working. And like towards the end, before I got kicked out, somebody had come in and they had given us a pamphlet for the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale, not near my family, near Hartford, no snow.
Win-win.
Looked into that and realized I could get into culinary school down there. And I was like, screw it. That's what I want to do. I want to be a chef. I mean, I had been cooking at home, watching a lot of Jacques Pepin and Julia Child. But at 17 years old, the 4th of July was my last day in Connecticut. I flew down to Fort Lauderdale and started school on the 7th. And that was it. I decided that day, I was like, I'm 17 years old and I know I want to be a chef. It's a miracle I was right.
That is such the story. So many. Literally played bass in a band. We never left the garage, so we never went on tour. I was that bad. Multiple high schools, right? Family business. So like finally I was like, you got to leave California because you're not going to make it. Uncle pulls me out to Ames, Iowa, the middle of nowhere, where they have like 5 restaurants. My family's been in it for 5 generations. So like they're like, come work for us. I was like, all right, sure, whatever. And you find your tribe. It was like the heat, the intensity, the hazing, the liquid smoke in your Coke. Like I just loved all of it. It was just so weird and so counterculture to your point. Yeah, and I think so many people have that experience. So I really appreciate that. It was like we weren't talented enough to be rock stars. So we figured let's go into this crazy kitchen because this is the band of rebels. And so I appreciate that. And I wanted people to hear that because I know that of your story. So let's jump way forward because I really want to talk about what's happening today and I want to set the tone. So you mentioned Ken and like legend for sure. Somebody who definitely has been a leader in the industry. How did you guys connect? And then kind of how did it evolve into kind of the group you guys have now?
So when I was getting out of high school or getting kicked out of it, and I talked to some friends of my family's and my uncle and this guy that was our neighbor for a couple of years named Ed. And we used to call him the baker because he was always baked.
Perfect.
Real last name, not that. So Baker was like talking. I was like, yeah, I want to be a chef. I'm going to go to culinary school. And he was like, yeah, man. Well, I'm going to Bryant right now. And like one of the guys that I play rugby with, he's in my frat. Ken, he's a chef. Yeah. I went to Bryant and he's a chef. And I was like, this guy is such a moron. There's no way he knows quality. So he's like, I'm like, yeah. And I kind of brushed it off, went to culinary school, saw him again years later. He's like, yeah, oh yeah, you should reach up with Kenny. Yeah, you should reach up with Kenny. Kenny's the shit. Oh man, he's awesome, man. You should meet him. And I just didn't have any faith. I was judging who Ken would have been by Ed. And my uncle started telling me about him. I was like, no, man, my uncle was living in Boston, bartending at this like super industry spot. And he's like, this guy's really good. And Ken had won the James Beard Award. Right. And then I made the connection that it was the same fucking Ken. I was like, oh man, that's no way. That's the same guy. So I immediately like called the Elliott Hotel at Clio and left a message. I was living in Connecticut again for a couple of years. I like regressed into like this weird drunken townie, wasn't straight edge anymore, had started eating meat, gotten fat, was just really angry and had no direction. Like I was just the guy that everybody would avoid at a bar because just nothing good happened around me, whether self-fulfilling prophecy of anger. And it was terrible. And I was like, I needed to get out of town. And my boss, I was working for Billy Grant, who taught me a ton about being a chef. And Billy's the best at his restaurant Brico in West Hartford. And he was like, dude, you need to get out of here. And he kept telling me about like being surrounded by more talent. And I realized now he didn't mean more talented cooks because I was surrounded by a ton of talented cooks. He meant I needed to get the hell away from my friends. He meant get out of here. So I was like, I want to go work for the guy who won the Beard Award. I want to go work for him because Uncle Will says he's the best. Interview with him, call up, leave a voicemail, calls me back. I go up the next day and I stage for a day. Kept in contact, moved up to Boston, didn't get the job, didn't work out, just couldn't make it work. So I ended up working for another restaurant. And at that restaurant, they were friends with Ken. So Ken would come in sometimes. He did a couple of guest chef dinners. I would see him out at Silvertone having drinks. We always kept in contact. We always talked. He would let me come in and stage at Clio from time to time. And we just remained friendly, and I always admired him until one day he called me and was like, "Hey, I'm doing a new project called KO Prime, and I would love for you to be a part of it." And where I was in my career, I was the executive chef of Eastern Standard, and it was like, yes, like I am the executive chef of this big restaurant, and I'm not learning anymore because I'm teaching, and I'm 27 years old, and I felt like I needed to take a step back. So taking a step from being the boss of everybody to working under Ken and learning again was like a re-education, and revitalized me, and turned into my biggest mentorship, one of my closest friends and brothers, and now my business partner.
Wow, I had no idea that you were destined to work with Ken since high school. That is super fascinating. And a couple things to unpack there. Just really quickly, tell people how important Clio was. Like, I don't think a lot of people who weren't in the industry, weren't in the area at the time, like understand how that restaurant really set the tone for a lot of restaurants, but especially kind of in Boston.
Yeah, I mean, Clio was Ken's French, excuse me, French, like French technique based but innovative worldly restaurants. Ken has an insatiable palate for travel. So Clio was the first place where you would see, full on degustation tasting menus of, almost 26 courses, very small plates. It was very innovative things. He was getting ingredients that nobody else had heard of. I've never had pico de roco at a restaurant in the United States. The king of the rock, this barnacle that kind of looks like a volcano that comes from Chile. Nobody had that. Like his thoughtfulness to food and his attention to detail and his insanity and his intensity in the kitchen. It is both turning and captivating at the same time. And that was it. He was like, for a lot of us, he was like the local Marco Pierre White kind of guy, but from Jersey.
Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted people to know, because Clio is one of those places, a handful of places, I think a publican too, like early in my career, I would always try to get my hands on the menus and be like, yeah, what is this stuff? Like, I've never heard of any of this stuff. And it definitely, I remember that time. So I appreciate that. 27, you're the boss. We are always put in leadership positions in the kitchen too soon. Pretty much nobody like waits until they're ready, and you're never quite ready. But because we churn through people so fast, me, I'm 25 and I'm the executive chef, no business being the executive chef at the restaurants I was. Yet I was just the most talented next man up because we churned through everybody else, right?
Yeah.
The ability at 27 to take a step back. I want you to go there for a minute, because I think too often we're in this like fake it till you make it scenario. We just keep hustling and grinding. We don't reflect on like what we're actually learning, what we're taking out of it, what we're putting into it. So at 27, take a step back. Talk to all the 24, 25, 27-year-old exec chefs that need to have the humility to take a step back right now and continue to learn and evolve, because it's going to serve them in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their own path. So I'm not going to be that old grumpy guy on the porch yelling to get off my lawn or anything. But for my path, the way that it worked really well was I realized that I wasn't teaching as much as I needed to be. And, as the chef, you need to be the one who can teach everything. And yeah, a lot of people now will say that, oh, you also need to be able to learn from everybody around you, 100%. But still, when you're running a restaurant, I'm not talking about teaching somebody about a new ingredient or how to make chili jam. I'm talking about how to understand the relationships and inner workings of like your own social dynamic in a restaurant, how to be nice, how to be affable, how to be a leader, how to grow a team, how that you can't just be the kind of person that says, this is my way, I learned it this way, you're going to learn it this way. Because great leaders don't tell people how to follow them. Great leaders adapt to the people that they're leading. And I wasn't able to do that. I'm recognizing that now after many years of therapy. The short of it was I had the epiphany that I wanted to be better, and I wasn't going to get better unless I worked for someone who could teach me how to be better. And Ken's the best. Ironically, I didn't call him for the job. He called me, which was awesome. Looking back, I realized why. I had a lot of the assets, and I was a pretty blank canvas. Like I was somewhat a known Boston chef within the small Boston community because of Eastern Standard and because I worked at Pigalle, and just people knew me. I was a nice enough guy. I was fake it till you make it. That was me, man. Like I could do like 4 things, And I thought that those 4 things were so good that I could like turn them on to anything I did. It's like being really good at playing one song on bass and thinking that you're a bassist. And then somebody says, hey, let's jam. We're going to start off in E. And you're like, what does that mean? I don't know how to, you realize that just because you can play a song doesn't mean you can play an instrument. And I feel like a lot of people, that's what being a chef is. And some people, you know, that's okay. That, you know, that's their path. I'm just talking about mine. And for me, that's not what I wanted. I wanted more. So it was kind of serendipitous. Ken called, offered me the job. I pretty much jumped at it right away, and we opened up KO Prime.
Wow. Just because you can play a song doesn't mean you can play an instrument. We're getting shirts made. That's fire right there. That's exactly it. Because what a metaphor for everything that is the restaurant industry. Just because we can cook a dish doesn't mean we can deliver on a service. Just because we know the steps of service doesn't mean we know hospitality, right? These are the things at play that I think we're having to reflect on. One of the things that I recognize right now, and which is why I wanted to title the episode that, thank you, Sophie. Perfect. Yes. Just because you can play a song doesn't mean you can play an instrument. That's the new Jamie Bissonnette sponsored shirt. So what we have right now that we've never had before in the industry is time. We have time forced, and it's not, you know, it's not what most people want, yet it has forced us to reflect and slow down for a moment. And you write in your bio, if I was not a chef, and you say you'd be a spy or you'd be in Black Sabbath, right? And it's kind of tongue in cheek. Yet also, I think in this moment, it's something we're reflecting on. So I want to go there for a minute. If you were not a chef, and I know that as you have so many people working for you, you have, right, New York has not reopened. Like there's real challenges happening for you right now. There's the possibility of closing restaurants and letting people go. All these things are real. And everybody is thinking about, if I was not a chef, some people are leaving the industry and saying, it's too much. It's too vulnerable. I have to go. Let's go there for a minute. When you think about for your own team, when you think about the need for you to be a chef in this moment, which just means leader, where are you going? What are the interactions you're having with your team that are keeping you steadfast and actually being a chef?
You know, I failed at it in the beginning of the pandemic for a multitude of reasons. One, I had just gotten married. I was trying to take time off. I was a little bit burned out with some other things, dealing with, you know, life. Life gets thrown at you in a bunch of different ways, right? And now what it is it's about giving people purpose and making them have hope. You know, it's like what any leader should do. It's like, it's what we're missing in this, you know, the national government right now, is that person to stand there and say, hey, don't worry. I don't know what the fuck is going on either, but I'm going to figure it out with you, and giving people that hope and being communicative. Like, you know, are we going to have to lay people off when winter comes? Probably. Is Save Restaurants Act going to help prevent that? Absolutely. So do I know what's going to happen? Not until we know what's going to happen with that. And to have that kind of pressure, there's, you know, for me, I could go 2 ways. And one way I could go is to just crumble, be downtrodden, and be frustrated and let it overwhelm me and let my anxieties, you know, envelop me. Or I can do what makes sense to me and for me, is to keep trying to lead and be that person and be the person that our teams can say, hey, I need your help, or what's going to happen. And, you know, they can ask anything, and we can figure out ways to drive revenue, not so the restaurant can make profit, but so the restaurant can stay open. And that way, if we have to close for a few months, that we can keep everybody on insurance for as long as we can, or whatever we can do, because this problem doesn't look like it's going away, you know, anytime soon. It's, you know, at least going to be another year, maybe longer, before things feel normal. So for right now, to be a chef, for me, it's, you know, it's about that. It's about healing our communities, and healing starts with restaurants.
Healing starts with restaurants. Your t-shirt game is strong, my friend. That is so powerful. We see now more than ever, and I don't think we realize it in restaurants because we're so in the grind and the hustle all the time. Next plate up, like only as good as your last plate. You know, those kind of tropes that run through the industry, where we absolutely see that restaurants are fundamentally the pillars of both culture and commerce in every community. Like they are the bedrock, they are the foundation, and we need to invest in it at every level. That's what we're talking about. So I think this is really important for us to reflect on. I want to take just the last couple of minutes to acknowledge some people, because this show is all about acknowledging the unsung hospitality heroes, the people that really make it happen. And I love this. You highlighted a few people, and you mentioned somebody, Rafa. Who's Rafa?
Oh, Rafa Murillo. So Rafael, dear man, dear friend. He was working at Pigalle when I started working there. The restaurant had only been open for about 6 months. And he was a prep cook. He was a PM prep cook. I think he worked number 9 Park during the day. And I would come in and, I came in as a sous chef or line cook, but promoted to sous chef very quickly. And as the sous chef, I was supposed to be dictating to Rafa how to do things, and he was asking me questions. And man, the dude was just badass. So I learned a lot from him. And then I taught him, and we ended up just really working together well. We spent time on days off. He had a little side hustle making empanadas out of his house, Colombian style empanadas out of his house, with the ribs and the little sausages and potatoes, sometimes like corn still on the cob chunks, and like they were huge, they were awesome. I would go and help him make them, or go to his house and drink warm beer and eat them. And then when I was leaving Pigalle, we were consulting on a restaurant, the owner of Pigalle, and we brought Rafa. And then I went to Eastern Standard and I brought Rafa. And then I just keep bringing Rafa wherever I can. And we were joking that in April we celebrated 18 years of working together. And
wow, Jamie,
I didn't think I was that old.
Yeah, we've been in the industry, me 20 and you're over that, right? Like this is an industry that, man, it sucks you in. Rafa, everybody watching this who's worked in a restaurant knows Rafa. We all have a Rafa that is they just got it. They just are unflappable. They show up on time every single shift. You always know you can count on them. They don't have these big ambitions like us, like I'm going to be a chef. They're just like, I'm just going to be a badass every day and let you flounder and flop around and figure shit out. And I'm going to be the rock of this kitchen. Everybody knows Rafa.
When Rafa brings an employee to the restaurant, that person has already been vetted, because he will not bring someone that'll let us down, because that'll reflect on him. And his pride around that and surrounding himself with good people it's remarkable.
I love this. Jamie, I appreciate having you on. I wish I was talking to Rafa right now, man. That is like, those are the people that make this happen. They're absolutely like the lifeblood of this industry. So I'm so grateful that now I have a little glimpse of Rafa. I'm going to make sure that you connect Rafa with me. Like I just need to know these people. This is why I do this, because Rafa matters and we need to pay attention. So I really, really appreciate that. One last person, I'm going to let you go. Our buddy Ming Tsai from Blue Dragon Boston, another giant in Boston, is the one that in his episode was saying what, Ken and Jamie are doing from a leadership standpoint needs to be something we reflect on. And so he said, got to have Jamie on the show. And so I'm so glad that happened. Somebody like Ming, it was amazing, right? We know him. He's famous. He's simply Ming, all these things. We had him on the show and we spent the whole time talking about that dishwashers were the most important person in the building, and that his icon for him is his father. Like we pretty much spent the whole episode talking about that. We didn't talk about the dishes that made him famous. We didn't talk about the TV shows. Like we talked about dishwashers and family, right? And I think that's an important moment. Somebody like Ming, what does it mean to kind of have somebody like that in your corner, shouting you out as a leader in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I always looked up to him so much. He was one of those guys, like I was, that asshole. I met him once, and then the second time I met him, and he's like, "Oh, what's your name?" I was that little young prick who had to say, "I've met you before," and he still busts my balls about it. And I realized that he didn't, he's just the nicest damn person that you'll ever meet. He has zero malice, zero anger. Like he's so positive. I couldn't imagine him speaking in ill will or intentionally doing anything to upset anybody in my experience. And now looking back, that's one of those young chef things. I wish I could go back and grab myself by the nape, grab myself by my own copa and slap me and be like, don't be such a little idiot.
Oh, I love it, man. Such important things for us to be reflecting on. We are in the relationship business, man. And to your point, let me take it all the way back to you being a kid. I don't remember the name of my soccer team, but I remember the family that brought the oranges, right? That's what matters. It's always those memories, those moments. And you remember the name of the family. You don't remember the name of the soccer team. That's what matters. You're going to remember the interactions that you had with humans. And if you remember an ingredient, you're going to remember it because some person introduced you to it. And that's what matters. So I really appreciate that. Jamie, Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate you being on the show. Everybody, Jamie Bissonnette, chef owner, part of the JK Food Group, Toro, Copa, Little Donkey. And yeah, just great conversation. And again, throw this up to wrap this up. IRC, it's in the comments. If you care about restaurants, go to the link and let your representatives know that we need to save restaurants. And this isn't like this, it's not this charity thing. Restaurants have earned the right to exist again and again and again. And we need to recognize that they are the lifeblood. Again, 15 million people. So pay attention, take a minute. It literally will take you a minute. Get off your ass and do something. It matters. Jamie, appreciate you being on.
We're not asking for money. We're just asking for you to raise your voice. That's it.
That's it. That's what we need. Raise your voice. All right, Jamie, have a great day. I really appreciate you being on.
You too. Thank you. Cheers.
Jamie Bissonnette, the real deal. If he was not a chef, he'd be a spy or play for a band like Black Sabbath. I love it. He's just real. We just need real leaders right now that are saying, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but I'm going to be with you through that. It's super important. It's why I'm trying to show up every day to hustle and communicate, to introduce us to people like Rafa, because it matters, because that story, that human is what's going to compel us to action. And the action that we need right now is supporting restaurants. So appreciate everyone as always. Again, this is Best Served Podcast 206. We're talking If I Was Not a Chef with Jamie Bissonnette of Toro and Little Donkey. And again, this channel, Best Served Fresh. We're always trying to bring fresh ideas, new approaches, best practices kind of to light through both the successes and failures of all of us in the industry. So really appreciate you all, as always, for tuning in. Cheers.